You know the day destroys the night, night divides the day.
Watching both The Great Dictator and Monsieur Verdot has given me strong proof that between those two films lies the shift from modernism to postmodernism. The independently developed maximalism of Chaplin's style had worked its way up for years to the level of The Great Dictator. Chaplin, the character, underwent a metamorphosis from tramp to dictator, as Chaplin, the director, underwent the artistic equivalent, like the transition between Joyce's Leopold Bloom in Ulysses and Humphrey Chimpton Earwicker in Finnegan's Wake. Wanderer to ruler, John Doe to Adolf Hitler. What a wake-up call. Humanity found that its wish for communism had transformed into a wish for fascism in just 20 years. In The Great Dictator, we see, if not necessarily the peak of Chaplin's ambition, the peak of the concept of his ambition. It finds in itself the worth to end on a sincere and emotional speech. To find that within an endeavor as esoteric as that into Chaplin's slapstick style is to say that the endeavor is the style's perfection. From the apex of idealism, Monsieur Verdot is the natural aftermath. While still a comedy, the film differs in its comedy from Chaplin's prior work almost as heavily as with that of Camus' The Stranger.
At times.
The film is about Verdot, a man who marries and kills many women for their money. Chaplin's comedy becomes subtler, either in pursuit of realism or out of indifference toward the abnormal. Both components manifest themselves in works and artists who define postmodern thought. Beckett and John Cage and Borges, all in their own ways, want reality to reveal its own absurdity rather than themselves exaggerate it. Chaplin here isn't giving you as much of reality itself as possible out of some philosophical necessity. He's just adapting. Meaning here is to be found in the way he evolved, the trail that he leaves behind in his path to new details, and in that way, it is rich. Limelight is the best of all his films, and surprisingly underrated overall. It comes after Verdot and lets the blacklisted era of his career fold over once into self-reflection. Verdot reflected on the state of humanity, Limelight reflects on the state of Chaplin, and does so with that aim in the mind of every touch applied to it. It's an unfortunate set of circumstances that keep this film from sharing the top of lists with Citizen Kane. Hardly anyone screamed auteur more than Chaplin. I'm writing that in bed after engaging in what made for a particularly modern spectacle. In the corner of my room, I create graphics for my 1980s music log, utilizing 3 windows, one for Photoshop and 2 for reference for my 2 Rate Your Music accounts and a Topster. Stacked and nudged to the left side are the browser windows, and the 2-story Photoshop window occupies more space on the right. But at the very bottom of the screen, the captions to the 1961 French New Wave film Last Year at Marienbad are playing, unsyncedly, with the bottom quarter of the screen sneaking its way in as a byproduct. The camera recording me zooms back. I'm sitting in my chair with earbuds in as my screen depicts an absurd degree of multitasking alongside the absurd experiment to determine whether I could use the film's captions as a rolling translation of the script while the audio plays in my ears. I am incredibly American in this moment, and incredibly 18 years old in 2022. As I write this, the majority of the film remains unheard, and the only light in my room is the phone screen on which I'm typing this. Tomorrow, I'm not doing any crap like that. Tomorrow came and went, and I didn't. Now is the day after tomorrow, today. I'm in a dark room with an out-of-order printer, listening not to music, but the whirrings of a nearby vent and the passage of students in the adjacent hallway. Yes, I forgot my headphones at home. The moment I realized this, I was alone in my car and probably made some sort of sound of dismay, knowing I wouldn't be able to complete my re-listen of Nick Cave's From Her to Eternity. Oh, how excited I was to complete that album. After a certain amount of time since my last listen, probably over a year, I had developed the theory that the more you know about music, the better Nick Cave's early albums get. And now I was testing it, and finding it true for that much of the album that I'd heard, until I had to leave my car. Hard cut, back to me in the printer room, whirring continuous. Well of Misery by Nick Cave, the last song that was playing before I left, plays in my ears and echoes in the deep room. It's a good song to repeat endlessly. It wants to be. I finish the album on the drive home. I start thinking about how big art is and how many things it can be, and I am overwhelmed by the beauty of experiencing real life after listening to 2 7.5 out of 10s. I grow aggravated at those who want art to aspire to one goal. I have the following thoughts. Saying I just have different values in art is just as bad as saying that's just my opinion. Both ignore the idea that there could be further justification and higher discussion. Both come from positions that fear the breakdown of that barrier. Whether shielding your own opinions from criticism or shielding your values from criticism, you're just adding dissonance between you and the person you're engaging with. The world is too dissonant. Explain yourself. After transcribing those thoughts, my mind is brought back to the second album, This Kind of Punishment, self-titled, an album from 1983 that was entirely home-recorded by Peter Jeffries and his brother. Each song's lyrics are incredibly bleak. Songs describe the last 2 minutes of someone's life drowning and an endless string of funeral attendances and a sentence to life in prison. Instrumentally, though, there's a smothered, mournful beauty underscoring and adjusting to each of these situations in the form of the simple and sparse piano. Solemn acceptance is the through line to this album. Works of art that make what first seem to be unbearable fates seem slightly less harsh. This kind of punishment do so by romanticizing them, but Samuel Beckett sacrifices far more. He doesn't have a good time making his art, nor do the characters he portrays. In fact, he and his characters are tied up in one another, because the beauty he wants to show with his art lies in the minutiae of their meaningless lives. In order to find that beauty, he has to put himself in their miserable shoes. Happy Days is an extreme example, as can be said for a great number of his works. A woman named Winnie lives every day submerged up to her waist in sand in the hot desert. Her sleep is interrupted by a loud alarm, and night never comes. The title Happy Days is ironic not just because the situation is apparently unhappy, but because the day is singular. Her only relief is a bag of toiletries and a single gun, an umbrella, and her partner Willie, who lives in a cave underneath the mound of sand. Willie's responses to her questions are incredibly brief, almost grunts. The play is an endless quote-unquote dialogue whose status as dialogue comes into more and more question as Willie's responses grow sparser and sparser, and Winnie's ability toward relief shrinks smaller and smaller. Her most constant and deepest cope with her situation is the division of time into manageable fragments, but separation is arbitrary and never truly comes. The final word she hears from her husband is Win, a fragment of her name. It's difficult to say if this truly affects her. The ultimate question winds up being whether that's enough for a human to work with. The answer is the play itself, showing the way that humans attempt to fill the space left by a fragment like that. I watched the 2000 film adaptation. Rosaline Linehan plays Winnie incredibly. The performance doesn't have to be ignored for the sake of finding Beckett's vision within it. If anything, Beckett's ambition of creating works that portray humans on the often neglected smallest level is supplanted by her performance. She completes the person. The reason I've kept from getting too experimental in this writing is because I know that the second I do, it'll just grow further and further ambitious. In order to keep this up, I have to truly give myself no rules. The second I put any emphasis on what I have to be writing, I'm already on the path to Fair Forward Voyagers Review Town. I am naturally ambitious and a perfectionist, which comes into unwelcome contrast with the fact that it just makes my life harder. I'm taking a step away from incomprehensibility that pursues justice for art on the highest level and toward a larger experimentation, one with my own freedom in mind, hopefully allowing the content I produce to come into harmony with the events of my everyday life, i.e. the shift from the weekly model to the daily one. I have days without music. Today wasn't one, though. I had long leisure drives without school in between, so instead of my usual drive soundtrack of music I haven't heard, I listened to pure comedy, just got back from the discomfort, and You Used to Think. This pure comedy listen was a great one. The best listens of pure comedy are those where the performance and music separate and become commentaries on one another. Any dissonance between the two becomes an irony of which you imagine the album itself to be aware. I played it loud. What a fraud, what a con, you're the only one I love, is a line where his voice just hovers in the air before plummeting down. In that sense, the music has an interpretation of the lyrics separate from what the lyrics themselves imply. It realizes its mistake once One I Love falls in. The final lyric of Total Entertainment Forever, This Must Have Been a Wonderful Place, is deliberate beyond the degree to which people give it credit. Here it's apparent that the music sees the irony in this lyric, but people's assumption that Father John Misty does as he's singing it is incorrect. In that moment, on this godless rock that refuses to die, was intended to be the reveal of the character in the song's true colors, and not his separate commentary. The way the album functions, Father John Misty never touches the content of the songs themselves directly. His response to each song is the following song. More specifically, the subsequent songs answer the problems that show up at the very end of the previous song, unknown to be a problem by that song. He progressively transcends the condition and finds the song of the future in the mistakes of the song of the past. That's how art in real life works too. Gravity's Rainbow written within the vulgarity and recklessness that came as a byproduct of Ulysses' scope, In Search of Lost Time written in the mundanity and pointlessness that came as a byproduct of realism's detail, etc. I hate to say it, but each other's all we got, looking to one another for balance, criticized by Total Entertainment Forever. This must have been a wonderful place, mistaking happiness for fulfillment, criticized by things that would have been helpful to know. On this godless rock that refuses to die, fake leftism, criticized by Ballad of the Dying Man. We'll all be wrong someday, bowing to fate, criticized by Birdie. When we finally find out what's bugging us, faith or life drive, criticized by Leaving LA. I can stop drinking and you can write your script, but what we both think now is abandon or death drive, criticized by Bigger Paper Bag. You're the only one I love. Human selfishness comes from within, criticized by When the God of Love. To make something out of nothing sounds like someone else I know. Artistic creation is akin to godliness, criticized by Smoochie. You stand alongside me and say something perfect like concealment feeds the fear and hand me a sea peach and say come over here, Smoochie. Love or the muse overcomes, criticized by two wildly different perspectives. On both sides. Humans are equally responsible, criticized by the memo. And then will just sell themselves into slavery. They'll get on their knees and pay you to believe. The human race hates itself, criticized by So I'm Growing Old. I'm Growing Old on Magic Mountain, treasuring ephemera, criticized by In 20 Years or So. There's Nothing to Fear, absence of the unexpected, criticized by Pure Comedy. The drive was to meet a friend from high school I had no way of contacting, who I hadn't spoken to. Yeah, I'm just going to jump back to the drive. In 4 years. It was okay, though, because there were 2 years in there where no one was allowed to contact anyone. Perfect conversation starter, like nothing happened. I was driving to the college I knew they were attending. That and their appearance were the only things with which I could work, so I just wandered around campus looking for them. Now, I haven't checked the numbers, but I'd say tens of thousands of people attend this college. On this expedition, I had no reason to expect to find them, but the possibility of seeing them existed, and, after being multiplied by how badly I wanted to see them, amounted to the will needed to search for them anyway. But all the while I'm there, I'm exploring in my head why I'm there, something which is never usually a factor for me. Why do I want this is a question that usually gets answered very quickly when I leave it for myself. The answer is usually some complication of because it's good. But in this instance, I couldn't diagnose the good. It was just hot, and I was exploring a college campus to which I'd never come back, and my phone was slowly reaching 0% battery. I was haunting the buildings like a ghost, passing through shelves, waiting by the street, circling a thorough path aimlessly. What freed me was my phone's death. I left in my car after 2 hours of searching. When I left, I lost the good that I wanted. This endeavor was a consequence of my recent discovery of what people mean by hope and faith and following your dreams and things. Aphorisms I've been fed my whole life that never made any sense are now coming to me more clearly as I shift from experiencing and learning about the world to choosing what I want to do in it. Today I chose to search for something, so I'm not all the way there. That search having no conclusion was new, though. I keep some notes of things I want to write about in here for later, but the only thing I got from doing that is the lesson that I should just get that out of the way while it's still in my mind. 2 such notes. Anime communities have developed very heavily around getting other people to want to check out the anime you like. Music communities don't require as much heavy lifting. TikTok anime edits versus the guinea pig video with Michael Rouse playing I just made. Stalker is a movie about how film as an art form only has quality to the degree that you're willing to look for it. The Stalker is Tarkovsky trying to get us to care about his movie. Now, it's been some time since I came up with these ideas, and while they probably could make for pretty good pages full of text, I don't really need to write any more than the notes themselves. Which should be no aversion, seeing as I never have the need to write anything, but when there's also no longer the desire to write any more than the note, I can't help but say, well, that has value, and it's small, and leave it at that. I think things' value should be measured against the time it takes to parse them for their value. I think the human race secretly agrees, which is why it takes such a great deal of convincing to get someone to watch an anime or enjoy Tarkovsky, and less than no convincing to get them to spill through TikToks at Mach speed. The difference is that specific lowest common denominator value is forced on you in the latter situation, whereas I've seen people come out of Tarkovsky and anime with interpretations so crazy that they could have only come from those specific people. If only there was some art form where many could experience the same state of mind as with TikTok, but also individually have the absolute freedom of experience they can get out of confusing, boring, or
serialized Japanese
movies. Man, if only I lived in a dimension where music existed, and I could just put on my headphones and hear the same thing as everyone else, will find a level of gratification unrestricted by algorithmic or cinematic technology's perspective. I think it would make sense for this document to contain a catalog of the art I've encountered, fluid and bumpy, to write about everything I've experienced, even if it's just to say that I have. So in order to follow through on that, I'm going to go back to the date this document began and record within it every work of art I experienced from then until it ends. The first day was full of movies. Monsieur Verdot was the last film I saw the day before. From the very beginning, though, I was a vessel for a constant flow of cinematic audio, driving with The Lady from Shanghai by Orson Welles as my soundtrack, a film which I'd begun while still in bed that morning. The most valuable element of the film I'm left with is Orson Welles' poor Irish accent. Otherwise, the tangle of film noir romantic confusion was purely ephemeral as an experience. In the car, I transitioned to Lost Horizon by Frank Capra. I was in love with Frank Capra after discovering in his body of work 2 of the greatest films I've yet enjoyed, It's a Wonderful Life and Meet John Doe. I was very excited by the epic that Lost Horizon promised to be, despite its being trimmed from 6 hours into a little over 2. The excitement lasted throughout my whole listening. My strongest memory of real-world surroundings, as the film was playing in my headphones, comes from my leaving the car and walking to my first class of the day. In my ears, the utopia in the film was being described, and I saw everyone I passed as someone afflicted with its absence. In that moment, the film was the utopia it was describing, and out of everyone in the world, I was the only one there. Despite the skill this shows in Capra, the utopia is simple, and only the basis for a great work, not the substance. The kindness of the ideal world does wind up serving as the basis for the real-world explorations of his 2 other films mentioned. The most interesting experience of the day came later, at around 3 o'clock, with the film Little Fugitive from 1953. The Little Fugitive is a young boy whose older brother is convinced by his friends to play dead in order to scare the younger brother into thinking he's a killer on the run, leaving the older brother and his friends alone. The remainder of the film is almost entirely the fugitive's silent adventure to fairgrounds, businesses, and beaches, represented in audio by the field recordings, atmosphere of the environments themselves, and an almost unbroken harmonica performance that substitutes for his psychology. As the film was seen, it would lose all its magic to a dissonance between the harmonica performance and the specific hijinks of the child. But as audio, the film is liberated and becomes its ideal construction. You, as a listener, have both the environment and the inspiration to act within it. The child's freedom becomes yours. Sleep. I wake up the next day and listen to Black Narcissus, a film from 1947 whose most profound value comes from the progression of its environment from a convent of nuns to a place just like the rest of the world. The film Shadows by John Cassavetes comes from 1959, but only because 1959 looked away for a little bit and let it sneak in. It's proof that artistic movements from years later were informed by something that already existed. Fucked up rock and roll party scene audio at the beginning of the film is an ominous precursor to the film's unusually casual portrait of an unseen side of America. If you'd only seen film and hadn't actually lived, it would seem uncanny. I watched the film Home Before Dark from 1958, gaslighting the film. It begins with a woman leaving an insane asylum. She was there because she believed her husband was cheating on her with her friend. He was. In the end, she's extremely committed to her own truth and extremely strong. It falls in line with the independence from reality of late postmodernism, a theme of Beckett and Ionesco and others. Sleep. Limelight by Charlie Chaplin soundtracked my drive to school and my early day. Sink or Swim by The Same from 1981 was the soundtrack to my ride home. The album is almost a proto-soundtracks for the blind, and it's very difficult to see where it could have come from. I don't know where its roots lie within the 70s, but I see great music that came later within it. It's a bit of an enigma for me, but a fascinating one. Sleep. Then A Day of Abundance, Casablanca, 1942, a film whose quality can be heard about anywhere. The 5,000 Fingers of Dr. T, 1953, a surreal children's film and musical written by Dr. Seuss. Repulsion, 1965, essentially a foreign avant-garde film in English. Double Indemnity, 1944, a noir that could be said to have perfected the genre. And an album, Hunters and Collectors, 1982, energetic punk rock whose energy is not just reckless, but creative and focused. Innovative and lost in many respects as well. Sleep. Listen to a Spanish album from this year with my friends. Won't name it because it belongs to the other highlight, despite the fact that I will never include it there. Night of the Hunter, 1955, a film whose lack of subtlety I praise film fans for being able to overlook. They so often place absurd emphasis on the need for precise realism. Chumlum, a 1964 film soundtracked by a drony Tony Conrad piece. Sleep. Whatever Happened to Baby Jane, 1962, a Robert Aldrich movie completely evil by all accounts, like Sunset Boulevard on crack. Sleep. Endgame by Beckett, Happy Days by Beckett, and Words and Music by Beckett and Morton Feldman. A day which made me a lot more okay with discomfort. Sleep. Sleep. Sleep being written to make up for lost sleep. Balancing and evening the sleep and distributing the art evenly along time. Hush Hush Sweet Charlotte, 1964 by Robert Aldrich. Less cruelty than Baby Jane, more drama. Less reality, more definition. Sleep. Art sine waves in and out of importance, with sine waves small and sine waves large, wider and thinner, compounding all together into what looks like a stock market graph. The play Bogeyman, 1991 by Riza Abdo, arises from the wide hill of theater emerging. It's the craziest thing ever. It's on Vimeo. Go watch it. Sleep. Rhinoceros, 1959, by Eugene Ionesco, the genesis of his mention earlier. A play so good that you can like it no matter what. People say Orwell writes fiction where either side can see the opposite in it. That's a lie. This is a work where everyone sees their own position relative to the rest of the political world, and it grows toward and finds the genesis of the loneliness within the era of existentialism and absurdism. Sleep. A Long Day's Journey into Night, 1941, by Eugene O'Neill. Mind-blowing. Utterly perfect work of art. Within his own life, Eugene O'Neill found the makings of a theatrical Finnegan's Wake. I instantly fell in love with his work afterward. For a brief period, his art surpassed Sleep as my time's foremost measuring stick. The Iceman Cometh and A Moon for the Misbegotten, the two plays before and after Long Day, lie behind it as the second and third greatest works of art from the entire period of my writing this document. He quickly became my second favorite author behind James Joyce. I now await the delivery of the DVD box set containing a recording of his 6-hour trilogy, Morning Becomes Electra, to my university. In the meantime, I listened to the live recording Mingus at Monterey, 1964, which is yet another work individually significant and unique within Mingus's catalog. Man is a miracle worker. I listened to Cocaine Lover, 2021, Death Consciousness, hip-hop. I listened to Keith Jarrett's Colne concert and really found beauty in it. The The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance, 1962, a movie by which my dad was extremely delighted, probably an eternal favorite of his. And The Life of Galileo, 1938, a play by Bertolt Brecht set at the genesis of science's modern predominance, where the seeds are sown for it to go awry in an elaborately orchestrated philosophical parable. Writing. A vision of pure comedy. The bears. Bears, man. I write a note. Modern man doesn't know he isn't God until he's eaten by a bear. Do you choose to continue the album or die? Listen on repeat as it continues from itself and remain God, or stop it and be eaten. It presents this to the modern man. High-level stuff. Always on top of the past, always on top of itself. Model of perfection beyond perfection until it is destroyed. No escaping death. It'll keep you as God while you're alive, not as impressive as keeping you alive in death. I'm watching Twin Peaks The Return because the website that I watch movies on,
Showtime,
also had The Return on it. I had all but finished the main series a while back, so I watched the rest of that and then Fire Walk with Me, and now I'm in the midst of The Return, which excites me in the way that other great masters' most enormous work in their late years types of works of art do. Finnegan's Wake and Wagner's Ring Cycle, each artist insisting on their enormously huge thing as a singular work of art, with David Lynch calling this a failure, and Wagner saying the Ring was one opera made for, and James Joyce saying that Finnegan's Wake's idea that it would just really begin again for all eternity. There was a photograph of Franz Kafka hanging in the FBI agency in episode 3. It makes me wonder if the FBI's investigation is David Lynch's way of incorporating the inspiration that goes through every artist that they show. If it isn't later, it always can have been at this point.
I think the day is gone when working endlessly on this account is the thing I most wanted to do in the world. It was in 2019 that was the greatest thing in the world to me. Now the greatest thing in the world is a lot less strict than that. It has more to do
That was not a real bird. I am. Hang on. Okay, hang on. I'm not going to stop the recording. The Daily Bird has got to be daily. That motherfucker you just heard was trying to shut it down. I'm lucky I got to him. I just got to find...
Hey everybody, real quick. Just want to say happy Thanksgiving to you all. Hope you had a good one today. I thought I was going to miss this. I thought I was going to get it out there too late. But I'm thankful for you. Let's just get it out there, right? That's why I made this video. I am thankful for you, and I had a great turkey day. Hope you did too. Hope you ate plenty of turkey. Hope you had plenty of sausages, plenty of bacon, plenty of ham. All the things that we love to have during our Thanksgiving feasts. I had plenty of it today. I'm thankful for you. I'll see you soon.
Damn script so that I can... Aha! Okay, let's see. So there's some Rick and Morty, some shit about gender, women like their dads, men like their that's tired. Who gives a shit about that? I could just like skip a couple of these. I see why they would try to shut it down. Okay, so no, let's go. On my way home from college now. Ooh. Try not to run over anybody in the parking lot. It's not really on my way yet so much as looking at the parking structure. I love parking structure. I drive that you can do. I love them. I have choices instead of choices beyond choices. It's almost like we're transcending the era of we're all performers, you know? That's kind of an assertion that of something that is recent. Maybe it started in the 2000s with like reality TV and whatnot, and the pre-social media age, because social media was when we capitalized on it. But I think everyone was a performer to a degree, and that was how life worked. Maybe after that, more recently, everyone became a critic, and it came about experiencing reality and determining whether it was good or not, as we, better than it in some way. But really, we're not like better than anything. It was all that we're better than the past, The Bible is all wrong about everything, and we have the ability to say that because we all performed for a long time, right before we all became critics, and that became reality to us. And so we were focused on that, and it overcame what in the past was truth. We don't really have a grounded truth anymore. I think about Leafy is Here. I was thinking about Leafy is Here this morning, in 2017 being the year of pure comedy and the best year of art ever. And Leafy is Here was an underrated development in that when I started to reflect on that. Because if I go back to what I was doing, in 2016 I was obsessed with Leafy. I wasn't obsessed, but I made my own like type of Leafy is Here type content, which is just in the purest sense. It's just like, f this, f that, what the f, that's gay, f that is just criticism in its purest sense, and deconstruction of other shit for the sake of maybe amusement. I was thinking earlier about how that's kind of what TikTok is. TikTok is just, you watch a video where people put crazy effort into a thing you've never seen before that is completely pointless. That's what I'm talking about. Like, oh, we took ramen noodles and we put them in someone's hair and we wrapped their hair back around it and then we shaved it in such a way where it's completely flat. And then people in the comments are like, what the, why would you do this? What the hell? They're so happy in that moment. I think that that's an evolution of what Leafy is Here was doing by just taking a video where that was interesting and just crushing it in his hands. And we just crush everything in our hands now. We try to crush the best things in our hands. But that's not the future of art. The future of art is not in creating the greatest thing and then letting everyone shit on it, right? That's already past. That was pure comedy. Pure comedy is just the f***ing best thing ever, and it was made with the understanding that it would be completely destroyed and made into just whatever it wanted to be by anyone who listened to it, whatever they wanted it to be. Oh, this album sucks and it's about how white guys are bad. All right, you still enjoyed it. You enjoy getting that out of it. It's life in its purest sense, in that sense. I don't know if I'm recording this for the Daily Bird or not, but I am recording it, which is interesting. And god damn it, man, pure comedy. When I read Finnegan's Wake, I was like, this would be the best work of art of all time if it were an album. A problem with it is that it asks something out of you. It's instructions for the art. You have to read it and make the art within yourself. Pure comedy is just straight up, it's affecting your thoughts. Before you get into the lyrics, it's such beautiful, great music. It's dynamic to the degree that art should be nowadays, where you really are on top of the past. We think we're better than the past. It was justified, I think, 5 years ago, but I think now people are going too far with it. But pure comedy uses everything from the past, man. People talk about instrumentals are boring, dude. It's like all music ever is in there. It's just so expansive with the way that it perfects the past. Screw me being the perfect artist, because I don't need to be dignified in any way. He said, screw it, man. I'm gonna break all of my rules that I had for being a good person, where I have to be in my own misery. And he makes everyone really happy in the process. But now I'm gonna actually stop recording because I want to find a place to go. Bye bye. Bye bye. Bye bye. Bye bye. Bye bye. Bye bye. December. Nice. It's December 1st. I'm starting to think that. Welcome to the Daily Bird, your number one source for all World Cup news, World Cup statistics, World Cup commentary, and most importantly, World Cup debate. I'm here today. It's me, Bird's Library now, with Petrie Music, and we're gonna tackle what's been a rather confusing 3 days with the World Cup. You know, it's been who knows what's going on with that. I'm gonna get to the bottom of it with my trusty sidekick slash co-host, Petrie Music, and hopefully we'll have some other guests on to join us in the coming days. Pete, what's the World Cup?
It's a tournament with teams representing nations.
What's the best
and,
nation?
Whoever wins is declared world champion.
Yeah, who's gonna win? That's the second most important question.
So anyway, on Saturday, the Netherlands beat the USA 3-1, which is very nice.
I don't know if we want to be spreading stuff like that around.
Very glad that happened.
I don't know if we want to be spreading.
And then Argentina, from an incredible Messi goal, defeated Australia. England demolished Senegal from a Jude Bellingham masterclass, 3-0. Jordan Henderson scored somehow. We're still investigating how that happened. My favourite team, probably Japan, unfortunately lost 3-1 on penalties, with some of the worst penalties I've ever seen. And finally, missing Cristiano Ronaldo, Portugal won 6-1. Unsurprisingly, Cristiano Ronaldo's backup scored a hat-trick, because Ronaldo is bringing that team down, and any talk about Ronaldo on the internet is automatically foiled, and I think everyone on the internet is.
So, commentary side of it now.
Okay.
What are we going in a round of 8? And so England created the United States, right?
Yep.
I think we have that right here. I think it says so, right? I think it says, what is the real? And then we got some more stuff right here. Can't get my finger. Why doesn't it get my finger? Back to you. But now we get into the part where I have some thoughts. I think that Israel is going to take the whole thing. I think Israel's going to take the cup. About Piggybania.
That's not real.
Well, I'm sorry, I have actually got real. Hang on. That was one of my real questions that I prepared beforehand. Trying to read this. Will Mecca be in the finals? Japan, they pulled through at the last second. They're going up against South Korea.
No.
Well, then who are Japan going against?
They lost.
To who?
To Croatia.
Oh, that's got to sting. But South Korea is going against Croatia, right?
Brazil.
So Brazil's going against South Korea?
No. Brazil already beat.
Brazil's going against Croatia.
Brazil is going against Croatia.
And then South Korea, just by the nick of their knickers, made it past the round of 16.
I can't do this anymore.